Okay, don't you care? We're going down. We're out of here. 39. Who's going to do 39? I've lost track. Michael, do 39.
Kai Diego face everything amazing. So anu kai eken kai talase siopa perfimoso
Perfimoso, yes.
Kai ecopassen juanemos kai egeneto galine megale.
Yeah, good. Okay. Kai diagethes.
So he got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, silent, be still, or be as the one reduced to silence, be still. And the wind ceased and became dead calm.
What is the subject of egeneto? The way you translated it sounded as though it was the animos that was the subject.
No, it's the calm.
Galene megale egeneto. There became a great calm, or a great calm happened. Now, that's good. So again, diagethes, you got it twice. The Egirusinaton, they woke him up, and then diagethes, he arose. And again, don't over-translate, but don't under-reflect that he arose and changed the whole world. You know, that's the overtone we're meant to be hearing there. Epitimesen, what verb is that from?
Epitimao.
Epitimao. Timao and then epi. Yeah. So it's given order to, rebuked. Yeah. Told the wind off. Again, I don't use the word rebuke except in rather formal situations. So how are we going to do it? I put scolded here. He scolded the wind. And what did he say to the sea? How did you translate it?
I said, silent, be still, or since it's a perfect imperative, it could be as the one reduced to silence.
Be as the one reduced to silence. I love it. I love it. Which is, of course, precisely what he would have said. No, how would you say that in real English?
Silent, stop, or be still.
Silent, stop. What else? Shut up, be quiet. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what I've got. I've got silence, exclamation mark, shut up, exclamation mark. You know, you have to be prepared to get it into real English, even if then you have to know how to justify how you got there. You know, it's no good just jumping for an idiom and hoping it'll work. But yeah, silence, shut up. But I like, yes, shut up, be as the one who has been closed up or something. Philippa, I said you were going to do verse 40, didn't I?
Kai ipen autois deloi este.
To which, sorry, what's the word?
Deloi.
Deloi, yeah, este.
Hupo akete pistim.
Breathing on the antepenultimate word?
Akete?
No, the one before that.
Upo.
Upo, yes, you said hupo. Yes. Which, if I remember right, is something you see in a zoo. But this is upo. Incidentally, note what's happened to the tenses here. When we started, it's gone into the past. Why?
Could it be that Mark is now almost like he's coming out of the story and commenting on it, and he's making it more kind of, whereas he's just been telling it like he tells a story in the pub now. Now he wants to make a point. He wants the reader to suddenly be struck by the change of tense and say, "Do you still have faith?"
Could be. Yeah.
So the opposite of the historic present tense. So before it's speaking in the present tense, but about the past tense, to the present, to say, "You guys, this is what I want you to hear. Like, why are you being cowards? Have you not yet faith?" You see, is it Mark saying, he's trying to say to his readers or his listeners, this is the point for you to get immediately, and then you can think about the rest of it. But
it's possible. I mean, part of the difficulty with this kind of exegesis is that there are absolutely no certainties. You know, this is just historical, inspired guesswork. At least it's guesswork. It might be inspired if you're lucky. But I just wonder whether. Have you read Richard Baucham's Jesus and the Eyewitnesses?
Yes.
Yeah. Because if this was an eyewitness story, very, very vivid one, which was told and retold and retold and retold, what you might have at the heart of it is a story which is told in the aorist, but Mark introducing it has done what he likes to do, which is the historic present, but then he goes into this quite strict memory, which might be Peter's memory or whoever's memory. And again, nobody knows to be wrong as to whether that's Peter or something. Do you see what I mean? It just, these are just options to hold before your mind as you're reading the text. And it's very, very hard to do.
He said along, do you mean? It could be something that he said over and over again to them.
Well, no, what I mean is, there are many different theories about oral tradition and how it works. But my guess is that if something like this happened, the chaps who were on the boat would tell it 15 times that night before they went to bed, again and again and again. And then he said that, and then this happened. And you know, and once that's happened, this is Ken Bailey's work on oral tradition, is very important, I think. Once a story has been told in a certain way, and it's very vivid and it's been kind of character forming for you, that's how you always tell it. You know, you notice this in families. My wife and I now have, after 40 years of marriage, have certain anecdotes which we both know extremely well, and we both know, without ever having discussed it, how we tell that story. And if somebody's there who hasn't heard the story, we just instinctively, she tells this bit, and then at a certain point she looks at me and I tell the next bit, and we use the same words and we don't vary it. That's how we tell that story. And this is not kind of an odd trick, it's just how stuff happens. How much more in a pre-print culture, in a pre-electronic media culture, you do stuff by this oral tradition. So what I'm suggesting is that this story was told again and again and again, very, very early, and once it had been told that way, that's how it was told. Mark has heard it that way probably dozens of times. He knows it by heart too, but in introducing it, he gives it a framework, which is his own framework, which is the way he does it as the historic present. Now, I'm just, you know, speculating here, but we're struck with the grammatical phenomenon, and we want to find a hypothesis about how the gospel has emerged, which might make sense of that grammatical phenomenon. And again, you know, Mark may be turning in his grave as I say this, saying, no, it wasn't like that at all, but this is a possibility. Okay, so, Tidiloi esti, ka ipenautois tidiloi. Did you just translate that? I don't remember. Tidiloi esti?
Why are you afraid?
Yeah, diloi. It's quite an unusual word, but yeah, scared, afraid. Upo ekati pistin?
Do you have no faith? But for some reason I think, do you not yet have faith?
Not yet, yeah. Why is that a problem?
I don't know. I can figure out why I've written that, but now I've looked at it again. Upo is not.
Upo, not upo.
Upo is not yet.
Upo is not yet. So, what does that mean?
They will in the future.
We hope, yes, but
Yeah.
but they should have done. But what would faith mean then?
That they shouldn't be afraid. Is that what he's implying?
Presumably, they shouldn't be afraid. But why shouldn't they be afraid? What would?
Should know who he is.
Yeah, pistis here involves apparently a recognition or awareness of who Jesus is, which is, you know, pretty massive, really. And as you know, in the way Mark tells the story, this builds up to where? Where is this all going?
Oh, the confession of Peter.
In
Caesar in Philippi.
yeah, in chapter
8.
Chapter 8, yeah, which is the turning point in the middle of the book. I mean, Mark is the easiest of the Gospels to do the structure. You know, you've got the baptism, you've got Caesarea Philippi and the Transfiguration, you've got the trial before Caiaphas and then the crucifixion, where you've got Son of God, Messiah, beloved Son, Son of God, chung, 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 and you can see how it works. So here we are halfway through the first of those sequences. Do you not yet have faith? Haven't you got it figured out yet? And that goes on through chapter 8. Don't you get it yet? Haven't you understood? It's a major Markan theme. Okay, who's left? Dan, is it you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What? Yes. Spoonerisms.
Fogon negan kai elegon prostalus tis ara hutos estin oti kai go animos kai thalassa hupakue auto.
Yeah, okay.
So, and they were very afraid.
Yes, how do you get to that?
So, literally, they were afraid with a great fear.
Yes, why with? Granted.
I suppose you have to kind of provide that for it to make sense in English, but they
Is there a way we could be halfway from the Greek construct to the English construction? Do you see?
They were filled with great fear.
They were filled with great fear. Yes.
The repetition of fear.
Yeah, it is. It is. This is a trick. Different languages do this differently according to what sort of a verb it is. If I say, I hear the sound of a plane, am I hearing the sound or am I hearing the plane? I'm hearing both. But we can say I hear the sound of a plane. If I saw it, which I can't at the moment, it would be very odd in English if I said, I see the sight of a plane. Do you see what I mean? We would just say, I see a plane. Because with us, we kind of privilege sight, that when you see something, we assume that this is not a fantasy, an appearance. You say, I'm seeing the thing. But with sound, there's a bit of reticence. So I say, I hear the sound of it. You know, it might conceivably have been something else. Do you see what I mean? Now, in English, we don't usually say, I feared a fear, because that sounds too reflexive. But it's as though they're saying, they feared a great fear, as though to fear is something which has as its object as much the feeling, the intermediate thing, as the thing which they're actually afraid about. So they feared a great fear. It's like saying, I see the sound, I see the sight of something. We don't normally say it, but we can see how it means that. So this is actually the object of the verb. They feared a great fear. So you could say something like, how would you put that into English? They were filled with fear, or they felt great fear, or well, they were terrified. Yeah, but I see. I put here, great fear stole over them. You know, this phobon mega, this sort of mysterium tremendum, this sort of sense of, oh my goodness, yeah, they're overcome with fear. Okay, elegon proselytus, and they said,
who is this?
Ara?
Ara, who then? Or
Yes.
Who then is this? That even the waves, or even the wind, that's it.
Yeah.
Even the wind and the sea obey him.
What were you translating as even?
Kai.
Yeah. And what's odd about that in this sentence?
It appears before the first of a list.
Yeah. Well, but you've got two Kais in quick succession. One which means even and the other which means and. And that strikes us as odd because we like to think that language works on the slot machine principle, that you put a Greek word in, you get an English word out, and here it's quite clear. You put the same coin in and two different English words come popping out, and, you know, tough. That's just how Greek is. I mean, this is one of the real exciting things about language, not least ancient languages, is that you just can't do that, that you have to swallow the whole thing, digest it, and then say, now, how would we say that whole thing in English, while not just winging it, while being disciplined according to, as much as you can, the actual meanings there. Elegon, yes, imperfect. So, do you say they were saying to one another? Yeah. And that has to be right. I've just gone with the aorist in my translation. They said to each other, but I think the fact that they said it to each other, even though they said is aorist, does have that sense of this wasn't just one split second where they all looked at each other and said in unison, who then is this? This is kind of a muttering that's going on round the back of the boat. Just what are we getting into here? Yeah. And tis ara, who then? Hutos estin. What I've done, and this is a trick which you can pull in print, which you'd have to read it out loud to get. I've italicized is. I've put who is this? ? They said to each other, even the wind and sea do what he says. And that italicization there was a way of trying to bring out the tis ara hutos estin. But one could have, how else could you have done that in English?
Who on earth is this?
Yeah, you might say that, but something about the sort of consequence, the therefore, or I just wonder about the word so. You know, so who is this? Do you see? The so would be picking up from the experience we just had. What conclusion are we to draw from this? So who is this? So you need to play around with this and see how that works out. So, yeah, we've mentioned it already, but just to pan back a bit and imagine yourself as a first century Christian reading this story, we've already got echoes of the Psalms. We did mention, I think, before, what other story, obviously, is in the back of the mind at this point, which is hugely important for the whole New Testament. I think you mentioned it, John. The Exodus, yes. Where would you, obviously you go to the book of Exodus, where in the book of Exodus would you get the classic statement of what this is all about?
Chapter 14, the vine mercy.
And then I was...
the Song of Moses.
Which is in 15, Exodus 15. I find myself increasingly going back to Exodus 15. It's the Song of Moses, and then Miriam goes out and sings it as well. And you know, I will sing to the Lord because he's triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider is thrown into the sea. Yahweh is a man of war. Yahweh is his name. It goes on and on and on, and it ends up with the Lord will reign forever. This is kingdom of God stuff. Mark is telling a story about how God becomes king through Jesus becoming king. So we shouldn't be surprised if we come upon Exodus overtones. In other words, do you see, so much reading of the Gospels used to happen with minimal reference to the Old Testament. I mean, the whole Bultmann tradition tried to sort of screen that all out. That was Judaism, that's then, and this is now. But actually the Gospels are telling this story as the climax of the story of Israel. And at the climax of Israel's story, according to Isaiah and co., you should expect a new Exodus. That's what's supposed to happen. So when we hear these overtones, my point is, this is not just nice biblical decoration around the edge of the story to make it look pretty and remind you of good things that happened long ago. This is a way of saying, actually, the whole thing has rushed together at this point.
You're really reading the sort of New Covenant through the Old Covenant, aren't you? Like, as in, it's not like the Old Covenant came and then the New Covenant is sort of, it's just discontinuous. It's like, you have the time and then bang, and it's, oh, we have a continuation forever. You're really reading it as like, we read everything through God's prior revelation. It's all part of a big grand
part of a great narrative, yes, absolutely, which is of course deeply unwelcome within postmodernity because we've deconstructed all the big narratives.
Yeah.
But actually, well, we could wrestle about that. But and it's also deeply unwelcome. Have you read J.L. Martin's commentary on Galatians? Very, very popular in America right now, in many parts, where he has this so-called apocalyptic view, which is that that was then, and then bang, this is now, everything is new. Now, of course there is a radical newness. Of course there is a radical newness. But there is also a sense that actually this is what we were supposed to be waiting for, only we hadn't imagined it like this. This is at the end of Mark 4. What's at the beginning of Mark 4? He gets in the boat, he gets the amphitheatre, and what story does he tell them?
The sower.
Parable of the sower. What's the parable of the sower all about? And I don't mean sowing seeds. I mean, what's the point of it?
Hearing the news of the kingdom and receiving it.
Or not, as the case may be. Yeah. Why does he tell that parable?
The true Israelites, spiritual Israelites.
Yeah, you have to be careful with these terms, but I know what you're saying. Yes. But why is it necessary for Jesus to explain the kingdom of God? Isn't this what haven't they all been waiting for the kingdom of God? What does it mean for God to become king?
I think just eschatologically, is that what they were just thinking of the day of the Lord, perhaps? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, what would the day of the Lord look like as far as they were concerned?
Dreadful.
If they'd been reading that bit of Amos, possibly,
yeah.
But actually they were presumably hoping for
Romans
to get rid of the Romans, major political turnaround, somehow Israel would come out as top nation, etc., etc., etc. You know, there's a bunch of loose-knit expectations. There is no one template where everybody all believes the same thing. There are all sorts of different swirling currents. Read Josephus, or Assumption of Moses, or For Ezra, or whatever. Lots of different ideas. But somehow the big story's got to come together. The prophecy of Daniel's got to happen. The prophecies of Isaiah have got to happen. All that neat stuff. Israel's got to come out on top. And what's Jesus saying? The kingdom of God is here. It's arriving, it's coming right now, but it's not like you imagined it. It's going to be like somebody sowing seed, and not all of it will grow up, thank you very much. Some jolly well will, but some will go to waste because you lot aren't listening properly, or you're doing the wrong thing with it. See, constantly Jesus is doing stuff which say, this is the kingdom of God, but he is also saying stuff which says, I agree it's not what you were expecting, but actually this is how it's the seed growing secretly. Again, look at the overtones. And this is all part of the exegesis of this passage. You see, the seed growing secretly, which is just a few verses earlier. Somebody sows the seed on the ground, verse 31. Verse 26 and 27. The kingdom of God is like this. Someone sows seed on the ground. And then, verse 27, he goes to sleep and wakes up night and day. Kathudikai egiritai, that's dying and rising. He goes to sleep and he gets up night and day, and he has no idea how the seed works. But the seed is doing the same thing. It's going to sleep and rising again. It's been planted. Do you see? So when at the end of the passage we've got Jesus going to sleep and getting up again on the boat, it's got all those overtones. This is all about how the kingdom of God comes. And Mark is drawing the eye forward to chapters 15 and 16, that ultimately the kingdom of God comes through Jesus going to sleep and rising again. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
So it's how God became king, and not as you imagined, but it is the real Exodus if you have the eyes to see it. In the tradition of Christian reading of New Testament over the last 200 years, people have often taken a thing like this and said simply, here is Jesus doing an extraordinary miracle, quote unquote. That shows he's divine, QED, phew, now we've done our job and we can go home. And that just misses out all of this stuff that's going on. Because actually, depends what you mean by a miracle, but ever since Hume, miracles have been sort of, oh dear, are we allowed to believe this stuff? Because we all live within a deistic universe where God is a long way away and we're down here, and God shouldn't intervene in the world. But in the Bible, heaven and earth, God and humankind are much more involved with one another than that, and sometimes funny things happen as a result. And this isn't about Jesus doing something impossible to prove that he's divine. It's about new Exodus happening, and it's the God of Israel who is at work, not some absentee deist landlord God. And so suddenly, not just Christology, but theology has to be framed differently. Does that make sense? See what I'm saying? It's probably a good place to wrap up. That was Mark 4:35 to 41. Thank you.